Hello and welcome. Good morning. This is Business Morning. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwagotina from the global oil markets. Prices rose in early trade buoyed by a COVID-19 vaccine rollout in Britain and the imminent approval of a vaccine in the United States, which could spur a rebound in fuel demand, despite a large build in U.S. crude stocks last week. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 23 cents to $45.75 a barrel, while Brent crude futures climbed 21 cents to $49.07 a barrel. Prices were little changed overnight. Oil prices were also supported by some nervousness after two wells of a small oil field in northern Iraq were set ablaze in what the government called a terrorist attack, though production was not affected. Analysts were surprised that the market had shrugged off an unexpectedly large build in U.S. crude stocks in government data released on Wednesday, largely due to a plunge in U.S. crude exports to their lowest since 2018. The Energy Information Administration said crude inventories rose by 15.2 million barrels in the week to December 4, compared with analysts' expectations. In the meantime, the National Bureau of Statistics this week reported that Nigeria's total foreign trade for the third quarter of 2020 rose by 34.15% to stand at 8.4 trillion naira compared to 6.24 trillion naira recorded in the previous quarter. Our total imports stood at 5.38 trillion naira in third quarter, while total exports stood at 2.99 trillion naira, that's 34.85% higher in third quarter 2020 than the 2.22 trillion naira recorded in the second quarter. Now, this data reflects the fact that this year, Nigeria has continued to witness lower exports and higher imports. And the question many would ask is, why? When it has become obvious that we cannot continue to remain as import-dependent economy. All right, let's have this conversation with an export consultant and the former chairman, export group of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Bamidele Ayemibo. Thank you very much, Mr. Ayemibo, for joining us. Good to see you. It's been a while.
Good.
How are you doing?
Fine, and you?
Very well, thank you. Well, the rise we saw in the total trade is largely attributed to, the amounts generated from imports. Again, this points to the fact that Nigeria continuously remains an import-dependent economy. Are you concerned about this trend?
Of course, very much concerned and deeply concerned, considering the fact that we don't even have enough forex to fund those imports. So I'm very much concerned, and I think we need to do, we've been trying to also revert the trend for a long time, but I think the government is not doing enough in that regard. If you have been checking the paper in recent time, you've been seeing a lot of reports about the issues at the port, the fact that there's a new policy that is slowing down the rate at which export is being done. So if we are currently having more import than export, and we are consuming our foreign exchange, and then we are having hindrances to export out of the country, it doesn't really show that we're really ready to grow that volume of our non-oil export as far as country is concerned.
Now, recently, the central bank expressed some concern over the non-remittance of export proceeds by some exporters. Is this correct? And why should that be? You're talking about the challenges we have in the exchange rate market.
Yes.
Now, if they are not remitting the exports proceeds, how do we shore up our reserves? And again, so what are the issues?
Now, first of all, in 2016, when we had this kind of issue, we had a large disparity between the parallel market and what you have within the official rate. CBN came up with the I&E window that enables exporters to be selling at about 360, even though the official rate for CBN for importers and like about 305 or thereabout. Now, today, CBN had depreciated to about 390. Parallel market is over 450, 460. And CBN wants individual to export and then sell at 380. Now, if you sell at 380, 390, and you're doing commodity, you're not adding value, you're going to be at a loss. A huge loss. And we've made this representation to CBN several times. Recently CBN had a stakeholder meeting with exporter, and I specifically mentioned this to the person that facilitated that session, and one of the director actually tried to answer, and I said, look, it's at a loss. So if exporter is going to be at a loss, exporting and selling at the rate. You did it 3 years ago. 4 years ago, 2016, you were doing 360, 305. Now, the exchange rate, and you know what happened in the spaces? If you check this day, some of the newspaper, you see the rate of some of these commodities. And these farmers selling the commodity are aware that, you mean this guy is going to make more money. So as the exchange rate is going up, the farmer is also, supplier also increasing the rate at which these commodities are being procured. And the reason also is because a number of people come into Nigeria to come and buy this thing for export. I'm talking about non-remittance also. Apart from the fact that a number of Nigerians are not able to export profitably, there's some foreigners that are coming to Nigeria. They come to export this product. They didn't come to repatriate fund. And they come to export without doing documentation, of course. So those are the one I think CBN really will be more concerned about. But for Nigerians, I think CBN need to do something about the convergence of the exchange rate. So that at the end of the day, we don't have large disparity that is making the cost of procurement of the commodity to be high.
Now, this recent pronouncement that they kept, the remittances, diaspora remittances, do you think that
it's a good one? People, in fact, immediately that happened, the DG, I spoke with the DG at the chamber, and he said he actually called CBN to ask, why are you not doing this for export? I said, no, it's not for export yet, it's just for remittances. It's just for remittances. So we are hoping that CBN will consider that. Sincerely, for me, it's a good step in the right direction. We don't have enough forex, right? You want to bring down the rate, right? So if remittances are coming out, everybody is flooding the parallel market to sell their dollar. Of course, you expect the supply to increase and the price to go down. And I was thinking that might be the same for non-oil export. But for one reason or the other, CBN in his own wisdom feel it's not going to do that for export. But sincerely, if we're going to bring down that rate, we really need to do that.
Yeah. Now, a weak currency should ordinarily be an incentive, to boost exports.
Exactly.
So why is Nigeria's case
different? Because we are thriving more in commodities. So most people that are adding value will still be able to make profit. I still export value-added processed agro product, and we're still profitable in spite of the rate issue. Why? Because if you're adding value, if you sell raw material locally and you add value to it, even with the issues in the economy, the cost of production and the like, you're still going to be profitable because you're adding value and you're going to sell at a premium. If I'm going to sell raw cashew nut, probably about 1,000 plus, or probably between $800 and $1,200, raw cashew nut. Immediately I remove the shell. I can sell as high as $10,000, $11,000, even $12,000 because I've removed the shell. So by adding value, I'm able to sell at a higher price. Look at cocoa. The total cocoa market, sometimes we talk about cocoa, it's like one of the major items we export in Nigeria. But the total cocoa market in the world is about $9 billion. Max 10 billion, 9 point something billion.
But we don't
total
produce
cocoa market.
much when you talk about cocoa.
No, look at this. Total cocoa market, about $10 billion. Chocolate alone is $30 billion. So who is making money? Who is making money? If chocolate alone is 30, the total value chain of that sector is over $100 billion. So the people making money are the people buying the raw materials. So if we add value, it will be good for us. So I think government should encourage a lot of people to add value and support as much as possible. If we add value, we won't have so much issues. But if we are still doing with primary commodity, because for commodity, the buyer determines the price. If the buyer is not buying from you, like it did last year or 2 years ago, that why we should cashew nut, but anytime some country like Vietnam have bumper harvest, they won't buy enough from us. We have glut in our own system.
Now, when you keep talking about adding value,
yes.
When you talk about this value addition, can you be specific? What exactly
processing?
Are these?
Processing. So I'm
converting, packaging,
exactly,
and all of that.
Exactly. Processing, packaging. I mentioned the cashew nut. So look at cashew nut. Immediately, if I'm selling raw cashew nut, I can sell to maybe India, Vietnam. Immediately, I remove the shell. I can sell to Europe, I can sell to America, I can sell to Asia, I can sell to many countries. So the demand goes up, and of course the price goes up also. So when I'm talking about value addition, I'm just talking about the fact that we shouldn't go ahead and sell primary commodity. In fact, someone said, when we export commodity, it's like we're exporting job and importing poverty. Because really, the people that add value to those products are the ones that at the end of the day benefit from it. Both in terms of how much they are selling it, but more importantly, even in job creation. Even in job creation.
Now, recently there has been this huge backlog of export cargoes at the ports, because of some kind of severe connection issues with the customs and the shipping companies. Just wondering how bad the situation is.
I did a shipment. I'm doing a shipment right now. So I actually spoke to someone in CBN on this issue. So CBN came out with a new I won't say a new process, actually. The process has always been in existence. What they've done is to enforce it. And how are they enforcing it? If you're going to ship out of Nigeria, you're going to use a shipping line, right? So now the shipping line is expected to validate your NXP. NXP, the Nigerian Export Proceed Form. That form is needed for me to be able to, like application form for export out of Nigeria. So I need to validate through the shipping line. Now, but the customs, we have to issue what is called SGD, Single Good Declaration. The government inspection agent, we have to issue what is called CCI, Clean Certificate of Inspection. And they need to upload it to a portal where the shipping line will see it to be able to allow this good to be loaded on board. So what has happened now is that instead of just issuing before, which is a challenge also because of capacity and the like, now they will issue, they will upload. So they have more work to do. Then they have network issues. Then the people who were used to exporting without documentation are forced to do it now. So the volume of work has increased. A number of them don't want to do it, and they're looking for a way out by all means. But that's not happening because the shipping line will ensure you do what is right. So what is causing the glut right now is that there's so much for the shipping line and custom to handle at the same time, coupled with the gridlock and the issue in Apapa.
So how do you think this can be addressed, really?
First of all, I think the shipping line, the inspection agent and custom need to build capacity. And I think they need to work overnight for a while to clear all the backlog. They need to work overnight for a while. They need to build capacity in terms of the number of staff that's handling, because then they have to handle for the whole country. So it's like you're doing a shipment, you're doing about $2 billion in a year. Now, but you're actually in the recent doing about $4-5 billion. But now the $3 billion are going now without documentation. Now everybody has to do documentation. So the people are more to do, much more than they ever have done in the past. So we need more capacity building. They also need to have a better, because sometimes they will tell you the network is down, so they don't have network. So it's high-speed internet network, capacity building, and working 24 hours at least to be able to clear the backlog.
Now, we're having all of these issues, and the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is supposed to get started January 1.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I wonder how we're going to deal with all of this.
Yeah, I was just to answer that. Now, those are the issues that I think for AFCF, the beauty of AFCFTA is that, I got across to one of the people in National Commission recently. I wanted to ask, okay, because for you to trade under AFCFTA, you need certificate of origin that shows your good is off. So I said, what's the procedure? Do we have it yet? He said, no. Because we just ratified. And
that's a major problem.
Yeah, so we trading is starting in January 1, but I'm not sure we will be able to do much until maybe February, March, April, because that process has to be in place and people have to begin to register their product under the AFCFTA. But we might begin to get the heat, people exporting to Nigeria, maybe. But in terms of export from Nigeria under AFCFTA, I don't see that happening until probably towards the end of fourth quarter. At least we need to put that process in place first for us to be able to. And probably we might need to.
Are we coming rather too late? I mean, we've been talking about this.
Obviously, we're coming too late. We're coming too late. But it's better late than never. If we're coming too late, I mean, we were supposed to bid for the headquarters that went to Ghana eventually. Absolutely. Because we didn't sign when we were supposed to sign. Now we've ratified. I mean, the beauty is that whatever the case is, we have signed, we have ratified, we are in already. It's now for us to get ready. So I think, for Channel TV and other people in the media, we need to increase publicity about it, sincerely. You know why? ETLS within West Africa is 30 years old. Many Nigerians are not even aware, and they can enjoy that benefit. I see the same thing happen under AFCFTA, that with the huge opportunity in Africa, many businesses that are qualified, that could have enjoyed it, are not even aware such as this. Talk less of even trying to do it in the first place.
Now, for export consultants like you,
yes.
I mean, you're talking about, this is an advocacy work to get people informed
I
about the AFTA, and then you have to work with the trade negotiator. He was on our show a few days ago.
I saw it.
Absolutely. So, how can you work with a trade negotiator to actually ensure that there's awareness?
Now, so for us as an individual, I'm talking about my company now, we do seminars every Thursday by 5 p.m. on the AFCFTA. And we've had programs. So in the next 1 year, we'll be analyzing every country in Africa, from Algeria next week till to Zimbabwe. Now, that's on our own. The NAC, National Committee, is actually doing a number of programs. When this program is being organized, not everybody gets to know. So I engage with bankers a lot. We do training for them. And sincerely, most of them are not aware. They're not even they now have something it's called AFCFT, but in terms of preparation to be able to educate their customers,
understand.
They understand.
Because it's not, I mean, I want to believe that even services is also
including services, of course. So National Committee have been organizing a lot of events, and because I've attended a lot of, I go to their website, so I get to attend a number of those events. So they're doing a lot, but you are doing a lot, but it's not so many people that, I mean, you organize such an event that you're spending thousands, probably I'm seeing about 100 or 200 or 300 people. So I think the awareness creation, both on the part of NOTN, the National Negotiator, and the National Action Committee need to go up, including Nigeria's Promotion Council need to go very, very high up. You remember, the way we do election, that you know the candidate because of the campaign. I think we need to do that for you, because I feel this will be an opportunity for us to lift a lot of Africans out of poverty, because we can do a lot of trade among ourselves, just the way the Europeans have been able to do among themselves.
Well, we're talking about AFTA, and then there's this issue of border closure. Are we opening it, or we're not opening it?
I think it will be open. I think it will be open because, sincerely, okay, ETLS does not have room for arbitration. When there are issues between countries, how do we resolve it? Yeah. But luckily, AFCFTA has such. So I think if in the future we have issues with our neighbor on trade issue, we can explore the option of the dispute resolution under the AFCFTA rather than closing the border. So I'm hoping the government will, and a lot of stakeholder engagement is going on now to see how it can be done, because indeed we can't really say we want to do AFCFTA and close the border. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Okay.
It doesn't work.
Now let's look at the free trade zones. I know that that has been used in many countries to actually drive export. Now, could you assess the performance of Nigeria free trade zones?
When a foreigner is coming into Nigeria, he goes into our books, our laws, and check all the provision that benefit him. When Nigerian is starting business, he doesn't even check that at all. So the people that enjoy this thing you talk about, free trade area, free trade zones, are foreigners. Coming back to the same thing I talked about publicity and advocacy. So I want to set up a factory. If I know that if I go to a free trade zone, I'm going to have a lot of incentive, and it's going to reduce my cost of doing business, but of course I have to be ready to also ensure what I'm producing there is bound for export. Sincerely, maybe a number of people will go there. But in Nigeria today, that's not what happened. Majority of people there, either they are conglomerate who are well informed, or they're foreigners. So we need a lot of advocacy and publicity for SMEs and businesses to be able to consider the free trade zone.
Now, looking at the scenario now in the export sector, what is your outlook, for next year, coming year, particularly as we, kick off with this AFCTA? Perhaps by first quarter of 2021, are we likely to see a boost in the exports?
I expect to see a boost in export because demand is expected to increase because vaccine is here.
But do we even have anything to export?
Oh, Nigeria. Do you know the interesting thing about Nigeria? When you think of export, you think only of commodities. I export broom, granite, peanut, granite cake, that's kuli, and pap. Now, these are just regular food items. You can go to manufacture goods. Nigeria have huge, what we did in the seminar I told you about? We discovered about 70 products that Africa currently import, about 90 products that Africa currently imports that Nigeria have capacity to export. From tissue paper to regular paper there's so much we can export. The challenge has been, when people think of export, they think of commodities, because that's what we've done many years ago.
Perhaps we have to begin now to think out of the box.
Exactly. And reorientate our people about the fact that export is much more than commodities.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bamidele Ayemibo is an export consultant. Commodities market update is next. And Damilola Kimbami, Head of Research at Financial Derivatives Company, is back in the studio for Commodities Market Update. Hi, Dami.
Good morning, Chimezi.
I understand you faced a lot of traffic coming here.
Yes, coming and going.
Oh, my God. I hope it wasn't that bad. But I'm happy you were able to make it.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Now, I just finished having a conversation with Mr. Ayemibo, an export consultant, talking about our export sector. We've seen that that sector has continued to drop. We're not exporting much. In fact, our major export happens to be oil,
Yes.
while we import the finished product. But
Yes.
then one would ask, even when we do that, whether oil price is going up in the global market or it's coming down, are we really taking advantage of that?
Well, Nigeria is not a major player in the global oil market, and to an extent we do take advantage of it because it accounts for over 80% of our export earnings, and that's where we get most of our forex revenue from. So like for instance now, oil prices as at this morning, they've actually increased from $48 to $49, and this is despite the massive increase in US crude inventory levels by about 15 million barrels. And this is, one would expect that if you experience an increase in inventory levels, that prices should decline, but oil prices are still riding on the positive vaccine news. I know yesterday there was an attack on 2 Iraqi oil wells, which in total production is less than 2,000 barrels. So that is insignificant. But bear in mind that Iraq is OPEC's second largest producer after Saudi Arabia. And this country has been prone to insecurity and terrorist attacks. So it just shows that that risk is very potent. And if there's another attack that affects the production of Iraq, it will definitely affect prices because of how significant that country is as an oil player. And for Nigeria, right now, with oil prices, on average so far in December is about $48 per barrel. And we're looking at 2021, most analysts are projecting between the range of $48 to $50 per barrel.
In other words, we're going to pay more for petrol.
Yes.
The government just yesterday, I mean, they ended the bickering between them and Labour by reducing
price.
Absolutely. Well, then what difference does it make? Government says when oil price goes up, we're going to increase the price of petrol. So what difference does it make? So as oil price is going up, we should expect higher fuel price, right?
Yes, you should expect higher for petrol prices because we import refined crude. So I'll start from the benefits to Nigeria for higher oil prices. So right now, the average is about $8 to $10 above the 2021 budget benchmark of $40. So that just gives you about a headroom of $8, which isn't much, but we take whatever we can get. Now, on the other side, because we import refined crude oil, because our refining capacity is below optimal level. So that is a major issue. And the thing right now is the concern of Nigerians and even the oil marketers is like the industry is supposed to be deregulated. And if the government is now coming to reduce the price of petrol, it goes against the principles of deregulation. And because you would expect that if an industry is deregulated, then the price of that commodity, in this instance Ford, should be determined by market forces, meaning that when global oil prices, for instance, increase, we should expect to see an increase in petrol prices. And if there's a decline, we should expect to see that happen. But we didn't see that happen early November when oil prices fell below $40 per barrel. So I think that's the concern here right now, that it appears that the government is still trying to exert some form of influence or control over the market. And what it's going to do is going to deter investors, it's going to reduce investment, it would even undermine the efforts at making that industry more attractive.
So they have to let go. And I don't know why they are finding it difficult to let go. Anyway, this ₦5 reduction in fuel price, will that impact commodity prices in any way?
Well, the decline is actually very insignificant if you even compare it to the change, the nominal change, even when there is an increase. So ₦5 isn't going to make that much of a dent on the high cost of logistics and transport costs right now, and even on commodity prices, because right now what is still driving is the supply chain disruptions that are occurring, coupled with the seasonal effect, coupled with the fact that also most of these commodities, the raw materials used to actually even produce some of these goods are imported. So the exchange rate factor is still a major issue. So in terms of logistics and distribution, the ₦5 decline is not going to move the needle significantly.
Okay, on Tuesday I told you, well, we'll be talking about onion. That's the new gold.
Yes, in Nigeria.
But interestingly, I mean, from what you have on your slide there, onion, the price of onion came down, but how significant is that? It's still high, but that's good news anyway.
Yes.
So what has been driving the price of this commodity that we have to target, the new gold?
Yeah, so first of all, seasonality is affecting the price of onions. So typically in the fourth quarter of the year, which is the dry season, that is the planting season for onions. So obviously that would affect supply. Also, if you look at the states where onions are grown predominantly in Nigeria, they're in the north, so the likes of Kano, Kebbi, Sokoto. So these countries are prone to insecurity and a high crime rate. So that also has affected farmers and prevented them from going to their farmlands to actually grow this commodity. Also, flooding is a major issue that has affected the commodity. We know that in Sokoto experienced a high level of floods around October, November, and obviously that washed away about 80 to 85% of the crop. So that some of these factors, coupled with, we know the NSAS protests and the fallout and the curfew that affected supply disruption. So these are some of the factors that have actually led to this increase in the price of onions. But like you rightly said, we conducted a survey earlier this week, and what we've seen is that the price of a bag of onions has actually fallen by about 5,000 naira to 75,000 naira a bag. That isn't that significant, but it just shows that at least right now, we're beginning to see an improvement in supply. So, because right now, it's because of that supply disruption that we have seen an increase in prices. And also, we're beginning to see that onions are also being smuggled, despite the fact that the borders are closed. Onions are also being smuggled from Niger Republic. So, that gradual increase in supply is leading to the moderation in prices. But I would issue a note of caution. The prices are still going to remain high for the rest of the year.
Even with the dry season coming?
Yes, yeah, because that's the planting season. So typically in the planting season, supply is reduced. In the harvest season, obviously, you have an increase in output, which leads to an increase in supply, and prices are depressed.
So when are we likely going to see a reversal?
So if at all, maybe sometime towards the end of January, February. So prices are still going to remain high. So what I would advise or recommend is use onions in moderation.
I told my children that.
It's the most commonly used vegetable, but then use it in moderation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's look at flour. It's not good to hear that the price is up. On Tuesday, we talked about global wheat prices falling, and you said that is positive for domestic price of flour. What has happened now?
Yes, so global prices of wheat are being affected by the projection that Canadian output of wheat is going to increase. So that definitely should impact on the domestic price of flour. But again, the exchange rate impact outweighs the decline in global prices. And we know that right now, a lot of manufacturers are actually using a blended rate of about 430 naira. So they're getting the dollars from the I and the E window and also from the parallel market rate because of the forex rationing and the dearth in forex liquidity. So most manufacturers are forced to adopt that blended rate, which is quite expensive. Obviously, at 430 naira, it's not as high as the parallel market rate, which is around 478, 480. But that is impacting on the prices of domestic commodities like flour. And we've seen that flour too also has increased about 14,000 naira a bag. And obviously it will impact on commodities such as bread. A loaf of bread right now, even if you're still getting it for 500, 600 naira, it becomes lighter in weight because of that effect. And manufacturers also have to weigh the cost. Are we going to be able to pass on the full cost to consumers, or are we going to bear some of it? So that's what is playing right now in the flour market.
They should try and consider the consumer. Okay, as we gradually approach the festive season, take us through the domestic commodities price movement. What are we likely to see?
Right now, we're seeing a basket of tomatoes and pepper relatively still flat. Likewise, the price of yam. But obviously, because this is the festive season, so you expect the commodities that are tied to the festive season the prices to increase. So the likes of rice, tomatoes, pepper, vegetable oil, chicken, turkey. So the prices of those commodities are likely to increase. But the price increase is not going to be as significant as previous years. Again, because consumer disposable income has reduced. So right now, demand is constrained, so you're not going to see that price hike.
If it's high, we will not buy.
That's why I said that. So the low demand is going to moderate the price increase, but prices are still high and they're going to remain high towards the end of the year.
Okay, on the global scene, what's the outlook for agri-commodity and of course oil?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, for wheat, the anticipation of a boost in Canada's output would definitely keep wheat prices lower. Cocoa, actually right now, Ivory Coast and Ghana, they've addressed the issues with the living income differential mechanism with Hershey's and Mars, these American chocolate companies. So that should impact positively on cocoa prices. Also, the Ghana election results are out. The incumbent won, so that should that's good for policy continuity and impact the global cocoa market positively.
Dami, it's always nice talking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We'll be back in a moment. And talking about commodities, the chairman of the House Committee on Capital Market and the Director General of SEC were at the Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange to see the challenges and progress made so far at the exchange. The managing director of the exchange, Ake Akeredoluwale, is projecting a $700 billion gross domestic product for Nigeria from the commodities ecosystem in the next 36 months if appropriate structures are put in place.
Major aspects of solid minerals, particularly gold. And we're very happy that the federal government is focusing on gold. The CBN is focusing on gold. And everybody knows that sooner or later, if we work hard on it, gold will become the reserve currency for Nigeria, whereby we'll have our own gold within Nigeria. And we'll store it as gold in Nigeria, and it will have value when we find in Nigeria. Nigeria is a resourceful country, and we have a very young, vibrant population. And particularly, we spoke with the Minister for Solid Minerals. In excess, on an annual basis, of $5 billion are things that we can harvest. And that is a very, very small amount compared to the distribution of solid minerals that we have in Nigeria and crude oil. Now, when we mention crude oil, one of the things that we're going to be asking for is that we should be able to trade our crude oil within this country. It's very, very important. Because that crude oil that's been traded outside the country is building up another ecosystem entirely. The float that is involved in that particular trade builds up another ecosystem in Switzerland and other places. I hope that the Commission, in conjunction with the legislators, will be able to find a way whereby, even if it's 10% of whatever we're trading on, producing about 1.8 million barrels per day, 180,000 is traded and Nigerians can trade on it there. Now, in the next 5 years, we look at a situation whereby if the commodities ecosystem is harnessed properly, we can use it to move GDP from single digits to a double digit. We've had, we're moving into a recession. We were at about $525 billion about 3-4 years ago. We're now at $250 billion, probably $350 next year. This is the lowest straw that we can be. If we harness our resources, mineral resources together, agriculture together, there's no reason why Nigeria should be under $1 trillion economy. And it is not rocket science. It is just for us to put structure into place and start harvesting. And when I spoke to a bank MD, he said that whether you people set up a commodities ecosystem or not, sooner or later, foreigners will come in and set it up. And whether you like it or not, indirectly, without structure, we are having a continuous influx of foreigners into Nigeria, mining in Nigeria illegally, exporting illegally, and making vast amount of money from it. So it's better for us to put together our structure immediately. Our projection from our own side, if you look at the value of mineral resources that we have on the ground, is that there's nothing stopping Nigeria from hitting about $700 billion GDP in the next 24 to 36 months from the commodities ecosystem on its own. Nigerians are able, they are ready. And I know that the commodities is there for us to trade on.
There are lots of things that are still, to be done. I've seen the very long list of requests, from the MD and also from the chairman's, address, what we need to do, for the commodities market. We are going to work with you to develop all the rules that we need to make sure that we are able to really realize the potentials of this great country in the area of commodities trading. It's not only agricultural commodities that we are really into, of oil and gas, of solid minerals, of currencies, and I believe you can also do even more. But let's really get the foundations right. Let me make this commitment to you that we will continue to engage with you closely. We already have our periodic exchanges. We already have our quarterly meetings, with you. But I will also want to say that our doors are really open. If you at any time have any issue, okay, reach out to us. Okay, let's put the issue on the table, discuss it, and see really what we can do to advance this area of the market. I believe if we are able to do what we are doing now, very well, this market will really rival many of the other markets, in the capital market. And I think it will be to the glory of this country and its citizens that, we can really have a more vibrant, economy in the years to come.
The responsibility of Parliament to ensure that an enabling environment is created for the commodity exchange, not only commodity exchange, including other capital exchanges to operate, because we owe a duty to ensure that the market grow. And the only way to save the economy is through the capital market activities.
Well, Eddie, I mean, this is your field, the capital market, the commodities market. This is a routine thing, and I understand they also visited the stock exchange, right?
Yes, Jimmy, you're right. They also paid a visit to the stock exchange where the CEO, Oscar Onyema, gave their projections or the outlook for 2021. And he's saying that, they're cautiously optimistic about growth for 2021. So we'll see how that goes and we'll hope that things play out well. But Jimmy, I'm going to have to tap into your own optimism because the declines we've been seeing in the market is really dampening my own mood.
I'm not happy about that. And it has to change.
Yeah, it has to change. Yesterday we saw profit taking on shares of FBN Holdings, UBA, and Ardova, and that dragged the market down, although marginally by 0.04% to 35,021.26 points, while the equity cap was at 18.304 trillion naira. Now, volume and deals were lower yesterday compared to the previous day, but volume was higher by about 5.5%. We saw most of the sectors down, but before, so I don't waste time on this, let's talk to Abdurrashid Momo, a stockbroker at TRW Stockbrokers. Good morning, Mr. Momo. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning.
With the declines we've been seeing in the markets and a lot of profit taking, as the year winds down with investors rebalancing their portfolios, what should we be expecting? Should we be expecting more profit taking in the market?
Yeah, basically, the trend for November was really on the high side, and what we are in now, it's a period of corrections. We are going to see more corrections to the downside, but what has happened now is that we are beginning to see more of increase in volume. That means, as I've already said, we have two types of players in the market, the traders and investors. For the traders, it's over for now because traders trade based on volatility, while the investors actually trade in terms of value stocks. So for now, for investors buying into the current market scenario, it's a good. But as I said before, the huge gain we had last time, we need to see correction before we can see a next rally. Mind you, the Q3s of all these companies, most of the key blue chip companies were okay. Even from the earnings forecast that we're seeing lately, based on certain parameters, we are still seeing good. Their forecast is going to be actually in profitable positions. So basically, for now, what we are seeing is we're going to see more of buying, and towards the end of December, when we do, in quotes, the window dressing, that's reshuffling of portfolios, we expect that we're going to see a rally coming up.
All right, Mr. Momo, thank you for your input on the program. We will be looking forward to that rally in the market. Abdurrashid Momo is a stockbroker at TRW Stockbroker. Well, Chimi, I think that's just what we needed to hear right now about the markets.
Yes, optimism. That's all I want to hear. And I'm really, really looking forward to receiving Santa. I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, we'll do our London market report next. And Sunday becomes the new deadline for a decision on trade talks after the UK Prime Minister and EU chief meet in Brussels. Juliana is in London and she's following this all the way. Juliana, talk to me. No deal yet on Brexit. Very large gaps remain, they say. Sunday presents another opportunity for a deal. I don't envy Boris Johnson at this time, or do you?
No, I don't. Boris Johnson is probably doing less of the hard work. It's the chief negotiators in that huge team that I pity. But look, I don't think anybody was really expecting a deal to be done over dinner. It was a 3-hour dinner date in Brussels last night. And I think because of the scolding that the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen had from the French, most notably Emmanuel Macron, and the EU chief negotiator Michel Barnier, she was pretty tough. And as soon as that dinner wrapped up, the British media was scrambling and pretty worried because sources were saying it didn't go too well, that the EU and Britain just wouldn't back down. They wouldn't budge. Britain not happy that the EU still want to retain some sort of control over fisheries. They want to align some UK laws with EU laws. This is exactly what the Brexit vote was for, to completely slice themselves away from Brussels, and the EU are just not backing down. According to the EU sources, they of course are saying it's Britain that are not willing to concede. Of course, they still have 27 other nations, and they want to ensure that it's not as easy for any of the other nations to leave. So they're driving a pretty hard line. Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary, he's been giving a series of media briefings this morning, still talking pretty tough, saying that Britain are not going to give away their sovereign rights, that no country across the world, including any EU nation, would do that. So it's pretty, it's up against the wire at the moment. I think one of the issues that Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, has is that he told the country that he has an oven-ready deal. This time last year, when he won that overwhelming mandate, he said that it would be a failure of statescraft to not get a deal with the EU. There is no deal. There is another deadline. They said Sunday is the ultimate deadline. Today there is going to be a meeting amongst the EU 27 nations. They're going to be having their council meeting, and what we're expecting is that Ursula von der Leyen will take the case of Boris Johnson and the rest of the UK to these nations. Are they going to agree or not? We don't know. Is Sunday going to be the D-Day or not? We still don't know. There have been so many deadlines that have come and gone before then, but again, it's all to play for.
Wait and see. In the meantime, UK signed a free trade deal with Singapore on Thursday. What are the details of this deal? Still in light of Brexit anyway.
Well, there aren't much details, to be honest with you. We know it's a $17 billion a trade deal. The trade deal basically replicates exactly the same a deal that the UK have with Singapore under the EU terms, but this is their own deal. Some are saying that this actually benefits Singapore more than it does with the UK. I believe that the UK is Singapore's third largest trading partner across the world. Last year, trade between the two countries was worth $14 billion. But, you know, there's no mistaking that Liz Truss, the Trade Secretary, and Britain have a very long way to go. The EU is still Britain's largest trading partner. They do free trade deals worth over 200 billion euros every single year. So can they replicate that? That is the main question. But still, a monumental moment for Britain anyway. And the fact that it came last night when Boris Johnson was eating fish with Ursula von der Leyen is still seen as some sort of a good thing. But there are still significant hurdles that are remain. But for Liz Truss and the whole Trade Department, at least they can tick another country off that very, very, very long list of free trade deals they're trying to bargain.
Well, eating fish and no deal yet. Okay. On data front, October GDP just hit the wires and shows the economy remains well below the size it was before the pandemic began. What are the major drivers this time?
Oh, well, October GDP figures are in, and really what it shows is that the UK's economic recovery pretty much ground to a halt. It grew 0.4%. That's down from the 1.1% growth that we saw in September. Of course, that 23.4% drop in April is still very much in the minds of everybody. And since that time, there has been 6 months of consecutive growth. But at the moment, I think it's so confusing for economists and observers because there are so many confusing restrictions and tiers. If you think about it, October was still quite a booming time here in Britain. People were still out. Yes, large swathes were in these tiered lockdowns, but November is going to be so critical because we were, of course, in that 1 month lockdown. This was the time when lots of people should have been going out, should have been spending for Christmas. They were restricted from doing so. So there is a fear that we are going to see a much more significant dip, which is this double dip recession that everybody has been speaking about. The service industries in particular in October didn't do too well. That's sure the biggest slowdown. Manufacturing and construction, not bad. A lot of people are preparing for Brexit, a lot of stockpiling going on at the moment. But yes, there are major concerns. Even though we are seeing some sort of growth in the UK, we're still 7.9% lower than we were in our pre-pandemic levels. And of course, the OECD have been saying that in the Western world, particularly in Europe, Britain's recovery is going to be the slowest.
Well, Juliana, let's continue to track those numbers. BC will talk to you later in the day. And back here at the debt and currency market, Eddie, what's happening there?
Well, Jimmy, the fixed income market was, well, bearish, but then we saw yield increase at the bond market, the Nigerian Treasury bills market, and the OMO market yesterday. But I'll be joined by Babajide Solanke, a fixed income dealer at FSDH Merchant Bank, to discuss this. Good morning, Babajide. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Eddie John. Thanks for having me.
Well, yesterday at the primary market auction, we saw the yield at the 364-day bill rise to 3.2%. Now, this is from 0.15% at the last auction. Do you have any idea why the yields jumped? And could you tell us more about the turnout at the auction yesterday?
Okay, thank you very much, Eddie John. I'll start with the turnout. The turnout was quite impressive across the curve, across the 91, the 103, and 265 days. So particularly for the 365 day, which is the major one that causes concern and everybody worldwide, like a park, is that the central bank offers 8.7, the demand for 42.71, which is the subscription, and so the exact amount of 38.7, so rather than over subscription. And like you said, the closing rate jumped from 0.15 to 3.20%. And this is not unconnected, from what the central bank has said in recent times. Remember, the central bank released a circular where it said that it will be doing a special OMO, to be sold, to the banks and to the bank institutional investors and retail investors. So what we're saying is that the central bank actually even has credited, banks with this special OMO. So that yes, the details are too sketchy. I'm just trying to figure it out. So what we're saying is the situation whereby this current NCD auction result is supposed to mirror the special OMO that central bank is set to do. The details are still sketchy. We're still looking at it. But what it also shows that there's an opportunity now for more active trading in the secondary market with the NCD rate at London can still at 3.2%. So we see more activity the central bank is trying to do. Apart from the fact that it's trying to tighten liquidity, they also want the market to be more deepened. Because we've seen the market very bearish, like you said, in recent times. So we're still waiting for more details before we can give a full report on what has happened.
Well, away from the Treasury bills market, now the bond market, we've also seen yields increase lately in that segment. How long do you think this will last, or is it still related to the CBN special bills?
No, it's not related to special bills. Of course, we cannot take away that there's a part of liquidity will either purchase either this or that, either the Treasury bills or the longer tenured, longer tenured bond market. As you know, the Treasury bills market is fundamentally driven by liquidity conditions, which is the liquidity management tool, and for the borrowing, it depends on what you're looking at. The NCB, the federal government wants to borrow, it is almost liquidity management to manage liquidity that inflation is controlled. What to say in the bond end of the market is that there's a sell-off. So when there's a sell-off, the yield goes up. Sell-off because of liquidity needs of investors, or because investors are just trying to position to take advantage of the special OMO and for the NCB auction that happened yesterday and for some other reason. But fundamentally, the bond market is affected by fundamentals of the economy in terms of economic outlook, the recession, in the outlook, in the crude oil price, even though good and supporting the budget is not good enough in terms of, probably a reduction in production, given our compliance with the OPEC production quota reduction, so that it can boost price. So we are gaining on price, about just down, we're losing on production. So there's a budget deficit, and you can see that widening, and you can see that in FX rate and the Federal Reserve challenge. So
all right, Babajide, I'm sorry we would have to cut you right there, but thank you for your input on the program. Babajide Solanke is a fixed income dealer at FSDH Merchant Bank. Ochimi, I'm actually quite happy to hear that yields in the fixed income space are actually
While you were talking to him, I was like, oh, thank God. I hope it will continue that way. We don't have much time, Eddie. We'll talk about that after this show. So we wrap up the show now. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwagu.